Before I had a CFO, dude, I would stress about taxes, even outside of tax season. I would stress about money every day. I would say, and it's not even that I didn't have it. I was just scared. I didn't know how long am I going to have it? What's the future look like? I don't know. There's just all these question marks. And that to me was huge. It's just lifting off the burden of not knowing. Welcome to the Lendsetter Show, the show that blends the art of sales, the science of success, and the strategies of real experts in the mortgage and sales industries to help you grow your client base, increase your revenue, and get in control of your life. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley. Kick back, enjoy the episode, and don't forget to subscribe. What's going on, friends? Welcome to this episode of the Lendsetter Show. I'm very excited to have a phenomenal friend, one of my favorite people on the planet Earth. He is our fractional CFO, but to us, he might as well be a part of the team. And I've actually tried to persuade him to be on our payroll, but he's an entrepreneur as well, and he runs his own business, and I respect that from one entrepreneur to another. So with that said, I want to introduce Chayce Hastings, the co-founder of Growth Financial, great friend of mine. So Chayce, thanks for joining on the Lendsetter Show today. This episode is going to be all orbiting all around, it's one thing to make money, it's another to keep it. And I think that's a really important thing, because for most of my life, I was decent at making it and I sucked at holding it. And, I had to learn a lot of hard lessons that way. And you guys have definitely been instrumental in helping us out. So before we dive into, the meat and taters of this whole discussion, why don't you give just a quick kind of walkthrough of your journey into the land of being a CFO, and maybe that puts you in too small of a box. Why don't you kind of describe to the audience who you are, and then we'll just roll with where the conversation goes.
Thanks for the introduction, Preston. Love you having us on here. Just want to give a little bit about my background here. We're going to start pretty deep. So I'm actually from a small town in Louisiana. Grew up in a household with my mom and my stepdad. My parents actually split when I was pretty early on. Things were really tight growing up. That said, definitely had a lot of love in my family. Not that there wasn't, there weren't hiccups here and there. I'd say.
Sure. We call that childhood.
Like everyone, that's one of the crazy things here is, a lot of the most successful people that I've met and, the deeper conversations I've had with them, just a very common trend you'd see of like, there's a lot of trauma and things that go as hurt. I mean, it's really how do you frame it, right? And for me, I frame any of the experiences that others might consider bad as those are like reinforcing things for me, growing up. So yeah, I mean, that is, for me, my childhood, and it's really everyone, if you've ever been in therapy, that dictates a lot of who you are as a person, and it's really determines who you are as an adult. But yeah, so I was in small town Louisiana. Fast forward through college, went to Louisiana Tech in accounting, left there, and then went and ran in the accounting department for an engineering firm for about 5 to 6 years. And so while I was there, I actually got paid like dirt, but the valuable part there was that it was a fantastic experience of really, grinding my teeth and learning every part of the business. I say this all the time. I have no idea what the hell they were doing, hiring me with the qualifications I had to do the position I did, but I would say it worked out for them, right?
They saw something in you.
Yeah,
More than desperate, but I like to believe they saw something in you.
It's what narrative do you want to craft for it, right? So, so I look back on that, and even for a little bit there, I call myself like, oh man, I got taken advantage of, that type of thing. But every day, I've got a team under me now, and I'm, training them and showing them something. I look back like, where did I learn it? It was just having the freedom to really do whatever needed to be done in that department. And, that kind of got me to where I am today. So, ran that department for 5 to 6 years. And at that point, got my CMA, I was certified management accounting. And then from there, shifted into, where we are today, left to join a firm that did fractional CFO work, was there a little while before, and that's where I met you guys, obviously. And then, left to be CFO for a, cryptocurrency firm, which was really exciting until it literally tanked month one.
Yeah.
Joining that,
it was interesting to see how quick those high highs and those low lows could be close to each other.
I was like, hey, Preston, man, guys, sorry, look, I'm going to be heading out. Like, there's, offer I can't refuse. It's been great. Love you guys. then a month later, oh my God. No, but and I got to stop here to give you guys kudos too, because after that happened, and we had already settled on me going to one of your guys' quarterly retreats to, just really go as kind of more of a friend of the company type scenario. I was probably in a little bit of a rut myself at that time, and going there reminded me how much I enjoyed working with you and other clients like you, and just the relationships I'd built, the conversations I was having. And so you guys are literally client numero uno, which is super, of the, Growth Financial. And it's been a wild ride, last little bit, getting everything together has been, I'd say it's been interesting to hop in. It's been rewarding to, start up your own firm and right away have a lot of clients come to you. And that just shows, for me, it's if you do good work and you have good conversations, typically successful follow. So that's a little bit or a lot of bit about me, maybe more than you're looking.
No, I like it. That was good. So it actually raised a question for me, because I myself don't know. I mean, I know of you as, and I think of you, I should say, as our CFO, right? And McBilly and I have always treated you, or we've always, at least this is our goal, is to treat you as the veto, right? It's like, we're president, but you're Congress. That's the way that I view it, right? And so there's been a lot of times where, and our goal was, we're like, if we're gonna have a CFO, we need to listen when he says some shit about money. And if he goes, that's dumb, we need to actually go, okay. And go against our desire in that moment to push forward or do this or do that, and throttle down. Or sometimes there's times where you go, you got to turn it up. And we're like, really? And so it's like, it's kind of, going against our, I don't want to say instinct. I mean, I guess it is instinct. Our knee-jerk response would be to do something different a lot of the times than you looking at the data and the numbers and all that would advocate for. So, I mean, I know of you as a CFO, but you had mentioned something there that I didn't really know. You said that you got your CMA. So before we dive into anything too tactical, why don't you break down for people that are listening? Because like I said, I don't even know. What really is the difference between a CMA, a CFO, a CPA? Like, let's break down some of these terms and how this all works.
Yeah, no, happy to. So CPA, that's going to be what 99% of people think when they think of an accountant. That's that goofy guy in the background, nerdy guy, cranking getting taxes for you and making sure all of that is, everything's in place, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. And they're really looking back a lot of the times at your historical financials to make sure everything is prepped properly and it's filed. That also might be the person who can give you your financials to date. But where a CPA kind of falls off in my experience, and you may have, I know that they cover it some inside of their curriculum, is it doesn't hit enough on the future part, the part about making your business. CMA is all about that. Certified management accounting. It's doing management accounting, which is, providing accounting reports for management to take and utilize and actually make changes in their business that are going to make them money in the future versus just trying to keep stuff in today. And so I'd say that's a big difference in how you should think about those two roles. So CPA, again, more ingrained. CMA, I'd say my understanding is it's relatively to the field, which is a very old field, but relatively a newer certification there. And it's very geared around your financial person becoming a partner in your business versus just this external person that you talk to a couple times a year for your tax strategy and structure.
So for somebody who's looking to acquire, so it sounds to me like CPA is really the main, the creme de la creme, the primary designation for somebody doing accounting and tax preparation, right? That's going to be looking backward. CMA, if somebody, whoever's listening to this, if they're like, I do need somebody helping me make sense of the numbers and the money, and they're looking for that CFO role, right? Because a CFO is a role, a CPA is a designation, and it sounds to me like a CMA is a designation as well. Sounds like if you're looking for a CFO, it's not something that would be beneficial to know is, do they have a CMA? Is this and that it sounds to me like that might be a leading indicator of knowledge or experience in that CFO role. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that. If I was hiring for a CFO for my business, which obviously, even as a finance guy, if I'm running a business, I don't need to be the person being my CFO at the same time. That's too many hats, right? But if I'm hiring for a CFO for my business and I see a CMA there, I immediately think that's somebody that can help me strategically and make all that work. And I'm like, Well, that's great, because when it comes down to getting your taxes filed and having like the right structure, unless you're like an Amazon or something, you're probably going to get an external CPA firm that's, getting the taxes. They've worked with a lot of clients like yours. They understand the tax structures appropriately. So it's really two different hats that you want to make sure that you get filled within your organization. And especially as a small business, both of those hats, seeking those separately is usually pretty good. However, like, as you know, on our side, we work directly with a CPA firm that we've partnered with to provide that aspect there. So we really manage that relationship also for you guys. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, and I agree, and I do love that, because part of and as you know, I'm pretty open about this. It's funny to me now, but I used to hate taxes, and part of that was I felt like it was a game I had to play that I never understood. I still don't really, if I'm being honest, but that's the thing about growing a business, is you hire people smarter than you in different functions, right? But the one thing that, I literally, back when I was like kind of this perpetual struggling entrepreneur trying to find his way, I literally went like a decade without paying taxes, right? And there's obviously guilt and shame that comes around that, because it's like, there's nothing cool about it. I'm anti-tax for the gist of it, because I'm quite libertarian, right? However, there's not really a cool thing to be like, I don't pay taxes. There's reasons you don't pay taxes, right? It's like, and so I've learned to kind of reframe the way I look at that, is it's like, okay, well, taxes are a sign that I did something, right? Now, I still don't like paying them. I hate taxes, but I changed my relationship with them over the years from how I perceive them, because it's like, yes, it still sucks. I don't like them any more than I used to like. However, I look at it now as an indicator of success for me, because the IRS doesn't have a target on you unless you've done something worth doing, right? And so that's why I went 10 years without getting Wesley sniped, because, it's like, why would they waste resources? There's nothing to waste resources on, right? And so now it's like, I just have a different relationship with that side of it, which I think is really cool. One thing I wanted to dive into is you have a huge, you guys really encompass a lot of the solution around money, right? Because it's like, there's so many different parts of it. You could have a CPA that does your taxes, but still have no clue about the future, right? And so I don't even think this is just two roles. I mean, I've kind of identified from working with you and your team, you got the CFO, you got the CPA, you have kind of like this controller, I think it's called. There's like different people that really collaborate to make sure that there's this like holistic like treatment plan for the money, right? Why don't you talk to how you kind of do the division of responsibility within your organization? Because I know you guys aren't a CPA, but you guys have such a close integration with our CPA in that relationship that it really does feel like it's the same organism, if you will. So why don't you talk to that division of responsibility a little bit, and how somebody that maybe has just been, they haven't had any future projections, and really they've just been turbo taxing it up on their taxes, and they're going, I don't feel like I'm getting what I need from this, right? How should they be looking at that division of responsibility, or potentially looking at a fractional CFO firm? Because I've also seen a lot sprout up, and admittedly a lot that I haven't seen talk about a CMA designation, right? So I'm sure that there's a lot of bad apples in that bunch as well. So yeah, just unpack that a little bit. Talk about, what should they be looking for? How does the division of responsibilities work? What is an effective CFO firm? How should it be structured? And what are some identifiers that they're in good hands?
Yeah, and I might go a little around the world here, because that's a pretty, all-encompassing question to it. And I think where I want to start, Nick, you mentioned like, you've seen a lot of firms, not a lot mentioned like CMAs. You have a lot of people that are going to tout over your fractional CFO, right? The vast majority of those businesses aren't anything more than like a P&L reader. If P&L is profit statement, they pull up your financials. They said, oh, hey, this revenue line says 100K. You made 100K this month. Great. Good for you. Oh, cost of goods. Hey, you made 30K, or you lost 30, you paid 30K in cost of goods sold. Great. Profits 10. You made, awesome. And so that's one of the big things you have to look out for anyone who is looking to hire someone to be a fractional CFO, is what are they actually providing, right? For us, what a fractional CFO means is it is someone like, if you were to, scale your business to 10, 100x your size, and you were hiring someone to be a CFO, what would that person be handling? And for me, it's peace of mind again, all the financial numbers. I can't remember if we covered that off the call earlier or if this is the first time we're talking about it now. So double.
Yeah, no, I don't think we covered it, bro. So this is good.
Yeah. So it's, it's really peace of mind on all the financial aspects. It's understanding, okay, are my taxes getting filed? Obviously, the CFO is making sure that happens. Our job might not be to file the taxes for you, but our job is to make sure it gets done and is done in a way that, really pulls the least resources, least brain power from you, right? It's like, imagine this person in your organization that just wave a line, your taxes are filed, you know how much money is in your business, you know what your profit margins are, you know what your ratios are, what targets you need to be hitting, and like, what are the actions you need to take if it's not happening? Really there to guide you and just remove that work off of your plate as much as absolutely possible. And so for us, that's what a fractional CFO does. You will find some firms where that CPA arm is in-house, and that is something on our agenda to bring in-house eventually as well. But what we do in the interim is we have this awesome, amazing partners. It's Adams and Peterson. It's the firm that we partner with. And so we have a direct line to them at all times. I've had, I'd say, probably 5 or 6 conversations on your behalf that you probably don't even know about.
I'm sure.
Specifically with Garrett, who's our primary point of contact over there. And, this way, if we have a client across, if you think of it at scale, right, there's 20 clients that are all filing taxes relatively similar. Taxes sound like this complicated beast because it's the first time you're doing it. You're doing it for yourself. Maybe you've done it for yourself 10 times. Well, guess what? We've done it for 100 clients, multiple years. So, it's
right.
It's hours. It's like, somebody's flying a plane for you. You want someone with a ton of hours flying the plane.
Right.
Her flying finance is for you. You want someone with a ton of hours. And you're not going to get that by just trying to hire someone who is, just working in your business, or maybe only has a handful of clients, and those clients are all over different industries with different structures. So yeah, that's really, that's what we try to do. But, it's like, kind of economies of scale of working with clients that are all very similar. That's why we, our primary specialty is in, service-based businesses, even more so remote service-based businesses. It's because you guys are within a certain revenue range, anywhere from, $40K a month revenue to, we have a client that's about $900K right now. All within that range, there's only so many things that are going to happen. So we're able to, plan for those and make sure that those are happening. And on our tax guy side, they only have to have the conversation once versus 100 different times. That's the role that we get to play. That's the efficiency we get to bring into the industry. And yeah, that peace of mind is what we're here to give you.
I love that. So let's talk about like kind of building a business, right? Because like I'm big on this. We've grown to about 5 million a year right now run rate. Our goal was 10 million, but with some shifts to the business, it's now 15. And I think we have a clear map to get there now. It's not free of work, but I think we have a vision that we can strive for. And so it's been really fruitful for us to know that not only are you guys watching our 6, right? So that this is and yes, I'm plugging your business, but at the same time, I'm plugging the concept of having somebody manage the money, right? Because it's like, I remember before we ever had a CFO, we didn't really know it even existed, and our emotional state was heavily dictated by what we saw when we looked at the bank account, right? Because we'd check it and go, okay, it's bigger than yesterday. Sweet. Oh, it's 20K less than yesterday. What happened? Well, we spent it. We made a choice to spend it, right? But it's like our well-being was very much determined by what we saw every day when we looked at the bank account, which created an unhealthy relationship between us and our bank account because we were, the decisions started to look emotional rather than logical. There's times it's great to spend money. It's like, yeah, you got less money today, but in 90 days you won't, right? And so now it's a more, I would say, just a healthier relationship, right? Because it's like, I know without a shadow of my doubt, you guys are presenting us with problems. I don't have to go look for them. You guys, if there's a red flag, you guys have already brought it up, right? And that's not just on current or past events. That's hey, we were doing the annual review based on last month, and I think this month, if we don't adjust these things, if we don't lower this, if we don't raise this, we risk these consequences, right? And it's like having that kind of clarity, it's removed so many question marks from our brain that frees us to stay in our zone of genius, that I actually think that's the most valuable part of it. Because it's like, Have you helped us make smart financial decisions? Sure. Has having a CFO been a profitable thing? We have certainly made more having you with us than we've spent to have you with us, right? But I think for me, the biggest point of leverage is the release of not necessarily responsibility, but the release of bandwidth that it takes from our brains to get back to focusing on stuff that matters. Because I remember before I had a CFO, dude, I would stress about taxes, even outside of tax season. I would stress about money every day. I would say, and it's not even that I didn't have it. I was just scared. I didn't know how long am I going to have it? What's the future look like? I don't know. There's just all these question marks. And that to me was huge. It's just lifting off the burden of not knowing, you know?
And for me, that's, yeah, like I think you hit the nail. Right? And it's an interesting problem if you actually look at, selfishly, like on our side of client acquisition, how do you explain what it is that we do? And what I found is, going and explaining the peace of mind part is really the best way to do it. Because here's the thing. If you're running a business and you're selling services, selling people, right? Like, oh, I'm running a closer business. It's really easy to tie the work that I'm doing to money directly. Mm-hmm. If you hire a marketing consultant, it's really easy to tie the work they're doing to money. When it comes to finance, it's very hard to tie what we do to money, right? There's this ethereal thing because we can clear the bandwidth off your plate, like, in terms of worrying about money all day. But if you don't do anything with it,
sure,
you spend money and you haven't actually turned revenue in there. So there is that part where, we're not going to bring you all the way to the finish line, right? But what we can at least do is take off all the stuff on your plate so that you can focus on what matters. And if you're a business owner, the best, like at scale, like obviously you're probably stuck in the day to day, but the best thing as a business owner down the road is to focus on what are these big, 10xing, 100xing ideas that you can do in your business to really propel it into the future, to propel it forward versus, if you spend 10 hours working on your taxes, those 10 hours are gone. Like you spent 10 hours, it's not compounding, right? But if you spend 10 hours thinking about this new high level, offer that you're going to be putting out for your business or service or complete restructuring, as you continue to refine that, once you lock that in, that service is going to add more revenue into your business. Right. More revenue in your business is going to have more team members. Those more new team members, if you've done a good job, are going to also create new ideas and bring more revenue into your business. So then your efforts are compounding at that point. Whereas if you're stuck, your business is not finance and taxes. That's my business, right? But if you're thinking about it, worrying about it, you're foregoing the compounding value that you'll get, working on your business to throw one-off work on your taxes.
Which essentially is neglecting the exponential to embrace the linear.
100%. That's exactly right. And that's what we see. It's a huge struggle, like as small business owners. I see it all the time, just trusting important things because getting your tax filed, it is important, right? But having it really just comes down to having a partner that you can truly trust. And I'd say more often than not, prospects, clients that we speak to come in and they're like, I don't know if my last guy did it right. He was really unresponsive to me.
I'd imagine that's most of the times. I'd imagine that because people are looking at the finances in a very compartmentalized fashion, right?
So it absolutely blows my mind. Just how disjointed the experience is too with most financial people. And, so my wife is director of ops inside of our business. So I'm lucky enough to have a relationship where, my brain doesn't turn off from business. So it's very good that I found someone who is willing to listen and enjoys talking about it as much as I do.
Yeah. You got the Alex and Layla Hormozy relationship. That's awesome.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I've recently went down, I've told you guys this before, the Hormozy kick. And I'm just like, yeah, pretty cool to see a lot of the similarities there. I mean, again, that's legit. My goal one day is for him to view me as like a threat to his revenue stream. We'll see if that, or a partner. We'll see.
Yeah, you'll probably be a partner. Honestly, I see more opportunity than I do conflict.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, look, once you get to that level, like it's, I don't know, they're big, petty disagreements. They're like challenges and all that. I've worked with a lot of people who are at that level. That kind of goes away. It's more of like, we build something together if we're trying to do the same thing, right? But that said, at the time of this recording, I'm not even like a I don't know, some vulgar analogy here so I'm not I don't know, I'm not going to go there. But I'm not even on his radar at the moment here.
Yeah. No, I feel that. So let's one thing I want to kind of talk about is like looking out for, because you had actually mentioned something that kind of sparked a thought for me, where you were talking about the disjointedness of it and the people that are coming to you with problems and just the, things weren't filed properly, or they weren't filed at all, or whatever, right? There's just mistakes and errors and disconnected events that, cause complications over time, right? The taxes are looked at isolated from the projections, which is isolated from, it's like this all disconnected series of events. And so, so like to me, when I look at finances, and I'm not a finance guy, you got your taxes. Somebody's got to be looking out for your taxes. You got your future. You got to be looking at future projections and figuring out what that looks like, right? You have just a straight up accounting, right? You have to have the reconciliation of what are we spending on, how the categorization of that, because we even get the monthly reporting from you guys. I know we do I think it's 2 calls a month usually, at minimum, right? Where we kind of we look at, okay, what are we doing? What are we set for the month? Where are we going? What is the goal? Okay, here's what needs to shift for the goal. If next month we're trying to do X, then we need to make, Y, Z, A, B, C changes, right? And so to me, that's been really empowering because, like we had that call the other day where we were talking about, the goal of sales and the relationship between that and our ad spend. And we need to, how those two things are directly correlated. I mean, everything's directly correlated at some level, right? But mathematically making sense of that and looking at that strategically, I think that's so valuable. And so, so I want you to imagine we got a loan originator listening to this, or we got, somebody that's in sales that's listening to this, and they go, yeah, dude, this all sounds great. How do we make it less ethereal? How do we make it more like something that they can actually pursue, or adopt? Like, what should they look for? What are the first steps for them to try to make sense of this world?
Could you give me a little more context on that?
Yeah. So somebody may not be in a position where they're ready to just go, you know what, F it, I'm just going to hire Chayce, right? Maybe that's not where they're at, and that's fine, right? But everybody that's in business has taxes, has revenue, has expenses, they have these problems, right? And so I guess my question is, somebody that's at that place that maybe they're aware of the problem, but they're not yet ready to commit to a full-fledged service to manage it, right? What are some first steps that they can kind of go through to at least make this financial situation in their life less chaotic?
Yeah. So I would say that, once you're probably bringing in, maybe over $100K, $150K a year, and you're running a business, that's probably the point where you do need to bring in, a tax strategist. And that person, if you find the right one, they're going to file for you, the forms that need to be filed. They're going to give you your tax deadlines, but they should also give you, a little bit of like basic strategy there to say, hey, should you be filing as an S corp? Should you have an S corp set up, which is a designation? Without getting too granular here, it's like, usually when you start a business, you're like a sole proprietor, an LLC. File a form, it makes you an S corp, and what happens is you pay less taxes if you've done it appropriately, right? But at that stage, you want to have that conversation. So you make sure that your bases are covered on that level, because that can actually have a significant 15, 20, 30K, $1,000 like a year difference for you in taxes. It can be pretty like crazy, wow. Right? Yeah. I mean, because if you are, if you're paying that level of taxes for yourself, typically self-employment plus income tax, you're probably going to pay 35 to 40 cents out of every dollar that you make. Wow. To almost that. But if you set it up right, you have to pay yourself a fair and reasonable. If you set up an S corp, you have to pay yourself what's a fair and reasonable wage, which depends on how much you make. Super murky, super vague. IRS is super fun about that. Right. But let's say, $70,000 is, you make $200K a year, but $70,000 is like the fair and reasonable wage from the effort that you put into your business. Of that $70K, you're going to get charged at that 40%, right? But everything after that, you're going to get capital gains, which is going to be around 15%, I believe, right? So it changes depending on how much you're making. But so you can just imagine, for the sake of this kind of napkin math example, you're going to save 25 cents on every dollar. More than that.
So that's a big deal.
So you got $130,000, which I picked a little bit rounder in math, but a quarter of that, there you go. So it's pretty impactful in terms of the overall taxes that you'd be paying.
Well, and that's, you guys helped us with that law. Like you specifically worked with us a long time ago we restructured and everything, and the holding companies and that was kind of cool because, I mean, obviously there's ongoing maintenance, but it's kind of like there's a one-time, the work's really on the front end, right? It's like you got to set it up right. But after that, there's like not much more maintenance than you already have just being in business anyways.
So, I mean, yeah, that's the thing, right? So it's, and we think about it from a revenue point of view, right? So 0 to 40K a month, that's where you need to have like a tax guy, and then like maybe someone's doing your books once a year. And then outside of that, your business can be run kind of like on the napkin math type scenario of, okay, cool, I know this much is coming in. You don't have many expenses. You might have, $500 a month in overheads, so like software subscriptions or something, maybe even a little more than that you have to pay. You have your own salary. You might have one person on your team. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand where your money is there. But once you go kind of 40K and beyond, that's when you want to actually start having someone you want to pay, like partner with like a fractional CFO firm, like myself, to, hey, now we're taking over your books for you. We're making sure everything is classed exactly where it needs to go. Because one, then you're starting to run into the area where you are technically at an audit risk. Audit risk means the IRS saying, hey, I need you to prove everything that you're doing. Now, that said, even then, it's like, unless you're making just millions and millions a month, you're probably not going to get audited. Or at least if you do get audited, it's not going to be a super horrible thing for you in your life. But in the event that you are working with a fractional CFO, can help you out with that process. Outside of that, once you're at 40K and beyond, your business is now starting to grow. And so now your decisions that you're making are having bigger and bigger impacts, right? So you're really building the foundation, and you want to do that sooner rather than later. You want to have a clear plan. You've got your own visions, your own dreams in your own head, right? But you need to work with a financial guy who can now write down what your dreams mean on paper and numbers. And you can actually say, hey, this is the plan I want to do to achieve my dream. Does this actually make sense? And then the best, if you work with a fractional CFO who's worked with other businesses like you, they can call you on your shit and they can tell you, that's not going to work. This isn't going to work. I've seen this fail. Oh, maybe you should think about this. And that's where the real value, I'd say, comes, especially like in our relationship. We're talking about, marketing agent things a lot. I can hold my own in conversation with you guys to a degree about marketing strategy there, even though, and this is a fun concept that I recently, kind of solidified for me. When you look at C-suites in an organization, because that's what a fractional CFO is, it's your CFO. Those conversations, everyone's coming in with their own superpower. You're going to have your CFO coming in, your CMO, marketing officer. He's coming in with marketing. You're going to have your operations person. Then you have your CEO, visionary, CTO, technology, whatever have you. Once you're sitting at that table, it doesn't really matter what got you to the table. You're all just talking about business, and you all have a good working knowledge of it. And really, those roles come back into play once you leave the table and you're like, oh, we need to do this financial change. Well, CFO, go back and handle that. Work with the team there. So, yeah, I mean, kind of a long-winded thing there, but that's really how you should be thinking about it, bringing the, fractional CFO. And after that point, it gets way more complicated. If you're already working with a fractional CFO, you should be able to kind of understand, like, they'll tell you, hey, now you're going to file a C Corp and walk you through all the other deep things. But if you're early on, you run a small business, that should get you there.
So, you and I were talking, I think this was within the last week. It's all a blur for me at this point, but you and I were talking recently where, we talk about the percentages, right? There's certain ratios that you like to maintain. Now, I guess my question is, and I'm happy to talk about those ratios, but is that specific to our business, or is that something that you feel is more like this is ideal if you can? What are your thoughts around that? And if it is more broad than and not just applicable to us, I think it would be good to talk about those numbers.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting when you talk about those percentages and calling them up for what they are. They're more or less budgets, and they're kind of safety constraints for you to have within your business. And so the numbers that we use with you are, 10% for paid client acquisition, 45% for labor, 85% for overheads.
Now, of revenue.
Of revenue, of your net revenue. So like, to give a clear example there, if somebody's going to pay you $3,000, but $1,000 of that is going to pay for their ads, $2,000 is the number that we're talking about there. So, so those numbers that we're using for you, they're I'd say that they're good extrapolations from very high concept. I'd say more of historical numbers of saying, oh, you want to spend like a third on client acquisition, a third on labor, and then the rest is like, overhead, profit, all that good stuff. Third of your expenses on labor, third on overhead, sorry. And then,
Well, I feel like that's even more of a generalization though, because I feel like you've even gotten more granular with us than that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So it starts at the granular level.
Gotcha.
The next level of saying, okay, we're going to take that and we're going to say, what does that look like for us? Because in your number, the 45%, we have your sales in there. We have your marketing labor in there, your sales commission, your marketing labor, right? But if you actually pulled those out and added those to the 10% ad spend we're talking about, you'd see the third.
As far as an acquisition cost, I see what you're saying.
It's the same number, but it's how do you present it in a way that is, easy for you, business owner, look at and to not have to think about all the different variabilities.
Gotcha. So we're just categorizing that as labor, and that's in our fixed or variable costs.
Yeah. Well, we don't. The way that we break it out, it's not very much on the fixed and variable side. That's a whole fun conversation that will melt everyone's brains if I go into it.
Okay.
But the point, where I'm going with this is right. It's like, I say the 10, 45, and 15. But if you have, let's say that you've got an operation that is set up, and you
hold on before we move forward. So let's say we make it $500,000 a month. Okay. So you're saying 10%, aka $50,000, should be in client acquisition costs. So ad spend, marketing dollars, right? The 45% is
labor,
right? So 45% of you're going to be at that's tough to, so 240-ish thousand, somewhere in there, right? Should be probably labor.
Yeah. Essentially.
Okay. And then from there, the remaining
15%.
15% is
overhead. And so that's going to be the software, trainings for your team, just really anything that is not advertising or labor is probably the easiest way to think about that.
So if you do that, so I'm just doing this 10 plus 25 plus 15, that leaves you at 70% between those three numbers. So the goal is 30% profit.
There you go. Perfect. Nail on the head, right? So we've got 10, 15, and 15 that get you to 30% profit based off of what we just talked about. That's just off of that example. Now, let's break that down. Let's break that number down a little bit further. What does that 30% profit mean for you? And this is a big thing I want to talk about here, in terms, especially given where we are in the market, things are tightening up with the interest rates increasing, especially, for your audience there. That 30%, what it is that's like a risk tolerance for you. Because if something goes bad in your business, external or internal, maybe you have a key team member leave and that causes some clients to leave you, in effect, maybe in the market rates increase, right? That 30%, the bigger that is, the more chance you have for something to screw up and not go down a break even or worse. The smaller it is, the more vulnerable you are to one single breakage.
Right.
So when it comes to these numbers that we're talking about, what you should do, it's more important than where did the numbers come from than to just have numbers on paper written down to say, okay, I'm set to make $400K this month. I'm setting aside $40,000 for my ads. So if you don't leave 40,000, if you don't spend more than 40K, you will have 10% on your ads. If you go into the 45% there, if you set aside 45% of that number and you don't spend more on labor, you're going to be at your budget. You're going to be at 45% on labor. Same thing with overheads, and you're guaranteeing yourself 30% profit at that time if you stay within those constraints.
But now the distinction there as well is profit does not equate to distribution, right? That's money left over in the account at the end of the month, but that does not equate to owner pay.
Which leads me, so I talk about profit being like a risk tolerance thing, kind of I said it earlier on the sheet, but a risk mitigator, right? So you're going to have profit being one metric there. The other is going to be actual cash in your bank, in your business's bank, not your personal bank, but in your business's bank. And so what you want to have there is like a benchmark for yourself is really 3 to 6x expenses. Now, if you knew a recession was coming, which we can say, are we in it or are we not? But I'd say everyone's feeling a little tight right now.
Yeah.
You want to have that number be on the higher end, closer to the 6, because you know that that's coming, right? So you're preparing. But 3x is the general, if you had to pick one number and be very general with it, 3x operating expenses is what it is. So what are operating expenses? It's the ads I was telling you about, it's the labor I was telling you about, and it's the overhead that we were just talking about. So you want to make sure you have 3x of those expenses in your bank at all times. And if, you got to run lean.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So we in the April issue that just went to print of our monthly newsletter for our members called the Mortgage Maverick, in the April issue, which is getting mailed out here to our members in about a week or so, we actually broke down the 10 things that we attributed our growth, because we literally had our best month in January of all time. And December was actually really good too, which traditionally in this in the mortgage industry, those tend to be slower months. And for us, it was records, which at the same time was happening while I knew friends that were losing their ass because of the market and the fear and all that kind of stuff. And so, I actually mentioned in that article 10 things that I believe set us up for a successful season while other people were having a very different thing, right? And this leads to one of my favorite quotes from a famous person, which was Walt Disney. And he said, "I heard that there's a recession and I choose not to participate." And, that was kind of a belief that we've had. And we actually, I don't know if you remember this, there was a season, and I mentioned this in the article in the April issue, there was a season, I think it was the December before. So not 2020, but 2021, we lost like over 40% of our clientele, like in a quarter, right? In like a 2-month span. And we had just hired for growth. We were planning for growth, right? And this goes into your conversation you're talking about that 30% is like, that's the padding for the punch, right? It's like, if it's 20%, you got less padding for that hit. If it's 40%, you could probably take the hit. Right. And so I remember how tight it was, and McBee and I even, stopped paying ourselves for a period of time to ensure that we could take that blow without the company having consequences, which, I mean, as we've seen over the last few months, Facebook, Google, aka Alphabet, Amazon, there's been tens of thousands of people laid off, and we didn't want to have to do that. And so it was actually a hard lesson that we had to learn. And I feel like through collaboration with you, and obviously a lot of hard work and growth and like long vision, not short-term thinking, but long-term thinking, I feel like we went from having like the worst season of our life to 12 months later having the best season of our life during the same season of the year, right? And the swings were still similar, right? They were magnified the second year negatively, yet our success was also magnified, which, I believe is off. A lot of that is attributed to you. That's why actually one of the 10 things that I attributed to us having the best season of our life it defied gravity by all metrics, was having a CFO that we felt we could rely on. So that's actually in the Maverick. First time I'm probably telling you that, but having a CFO it saved our ass, because it gave us, the way that I like to kind of make the analogy is, running a business is like flying a plane. And what I mean by that is one wrong move and you crash, burn, and people die in the process. And so, not having a CFO, let me rephrase this. Going into hard financial times is like flying in the clouds, and the CFO is the gauges, right? A good pilot who has their instrument rating can fly without visibility based on the gauges. They know, if this is where I'm at, I just maintain flaps. They're holding onto the yoke. They got all the visibility they need on their gauges. Now, if you don't know how to read the gauges, what usually ends up happening is and this is how most people die if they don't have their instrument rating when they're flying, is it's hard to tell when you're inverted, when you lose actual visibility, because you feel the momentum either way, right? And so they think that they're pulling up. They're really actually pushing down. Now they're in a downward spiral. By the time they're out of the clouds, it's too late to actually pull up, and they die. And so, that to me was kind of how I felt having a CFO was. It was, even when we get into the clouds, we got the gauges, right? And ideally, we're not in the clouds, and you're nice to have, not a need to have, right? But when we're in those clouds, we got the gauges. We know how to read them. We're good, right? And so I felt like that was a really pivotal thing, having you guys watch our back through these seasons, right? And having you having you there to tell us some of the hard truths you had to tell us in late 2021, right, which became some of the foundation for the strength that we had in 2022, which was, I mean, it was a game changer. And I would say it helped us take market share. It helped us continue to pass competition. I mean, I feel like most of them were already lapping, if I'm being honest, but like, you know, it was just a bigger safety net of protection between us and the competition. So I was very grateful for that. But yeah, having a CFO, I mean, we definitely attribute that as one of the reasons that we were able to continue to grow when there was every reason not to. When the common narrative was, it's hard out there, I'm losing my ass, and for good reason. I mean, it's like a lot of people were, right? And so I'm very grateful that you guys were there during that season, and I know that it made such a transformative change in our life. So I just wanted to give you that shout out there.
I think that's what you said is actually pretty interesting, and it triggered a quote in my head. And I don't know who said this to begin with, but you know, you can get rich in a bull market, but wealthy in a bear market, right? And so everyone's making money when things are good. Everyone's making money when things are great, right? But if you have positioned yourself appropriately, when things go bad, it's actually an opportunity for you, because as your competition's falling to the side, as they're struggling, that is the moment for you. If you have properly planned for it, and you're properly understanding the reality of the situation that you are in, you can turn that to your advantage. And if you can even stay flat during, you know, down times, pretty much, as soon as something becomes like, you know, good, you're going to shoot past everyone else.
Yeah.
And so that is, yeah, I mean, I think that's the fascinating, you know, just part about business, and, you know, it's a long game. You know, if you, I think Brad, maybe the infinite game, Simon Sinek thing.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
your goal isn't to win next year, win 2 years later. Your goal is to keep your business running, keep it profitable in perpetuity.
Right. Yeah. It should outlive us. I mean, ideally, right? It's like,
even if you go to sell a business, newsflash here, someone is not going to want to buy your business unless it's gotten value going out forever, right? So if you accomplish that goal, you will have a valuable business as well.
or if you're selling at pennies on the dollar at a discount, right? So Chayce, this has been a great conversation. I think there's a lot of awesome things here that people can kind of chew on. I mean, really, at the end of this, guys, you got to know your numbers, right? It for us was the difference between life or death, and I believe that quite literally, because if it wasn't for Chayce and his team, I don't know that we would have recovered from the winter of 2021. I mean, we may have maintained, but I think that we were at a very pivotal point where what we did with the next 90 days was life or death, and we chose life, and we had the people with us to be able to fight that fight. But you know, it's like, you got to have that visibility, right? So I think, like he said, if you're between 0 and 40,000, find a CPA you really trust and believe can help you. If you're above 40,000 a month, it's paramount for you to actually have somebody not just helping you make sense of the past, but make sense of the future financially. And so that's when you need to start looking for some sort of fractional CFO. I think a good indicator of a good CFO to work with, from the sounds of it, is a CMA designation. So look for that. I didn't know that existed, but now we do. Chayce, are there any other piece of advice you have for young entrepreneurs or even seasoned entrepreneurs that are just looking to have more peace of mind around their finances and more stability around their finances while they go out to grow? Because it's often hard for us, I feel, to focus on getting more money while also focusing on holding the money we have, right? And so letting go of the pressure and the oversight for me of having to worry about the money I already have, I feel frees me to focus on the acquisition of new money.
I would say the biggest thing that comes to mind is, you know, find whoever that partner is for you. Find one that has great communication. That's been the differentiator that I've seen between us and a lot of other, you know, fractional CFOs. Find someone who is free to talk to you, you know, really at a moment's time. You know, we're in a Slack channel with you guys. If you guys have a question, how long does it typically take before you get?
I mean, sometimes I'm like, I've entered the first sentence and I'm entering the second sentence and I already can see Chayce's typing. You know, it's like, it's nice.
So it's, you know, find someone that has a setup like that, because that is going, you know, that communication, even if you found someone who has like this amazing, like, oh, I've done this, that, and the other thing, right? All these certifications, CPA, CMA, all that. If you can't talk to them, it doesn't matter, right? So find
for sure.
With you, and that also shares the mentality of being your partner, and that you know, can just really jive with and build that trusting relationship with, because all the work is for nothing if you don't trust the partner that you're working with. So just make sure that that element is there no matter who you decide to work with. And you're going to have a lot of people out there that are going to offer you like pennies on the dollar type thing. You're going to get what you pay for there. You want to find someone who is quality over everything else, because in the end, that peace of mind allowing you to focus on your business will out earn virtually any amount that you're going to pay. So just make sure you find the right fit.
Final question I got for you, Chayce, is what is a book or a resource that you've gone through in either recent months or maybe earlier in your life it was transformative for you, so it's still like top of mind, but what is a book or a resource that you feel should be mandatory reading for somebody in the mortgage industry or in sales, or just in business in general?
Business in general. So, I mean, my favorite book is Who by Jeff Smart. It goes very deep into hiring. So if you're a team at any point in time, he's turning around. You got it on your.
I forgot. I let Tim borrow it, but I do have it.
So what I actually love about that book more than all the other ones is
this was another one they wrote though.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, Power Score. It's the sequel, right? But it's very actual guideline when it comes to hiring for your team, making sure you're getting the right targets, all that. Because in the end, a business will only grow as far as you take it if you don't have the right team. So you get the right team, people that will, again, add that compounding value. They're not doing one-off tasks, but they're actively building within your business. That's where the real success is. That's where you're going to go like to the highest like levels that you can possibly achieve. If you just have an army of people under you and you're the only person at the top, like leading it all, you're going to be limited and your bandwidth's going to be.
Yeah, you become the bottleneck.
Yeah. So, other thing is, Good to Great is a good book too.
Jim Collins. Yeah. You recommended that. I went through that. I went through Good to Great and Built to Last after you recommended that. So
I got to read Built to Last. It's on my my list.
You haven't read it yet. Oh, well, there you go.
I try to do like one book a month, at most. Otherwise, I'm going to try to implement 100 different things.
That's fair. There's a lot out there.
Yeah. So, but yeah. All right.
Yeah, you recommended that to me, and I literally just hopped on Audible and Amazon. I bought it right away, and I started reading it. So that was a good read. I felt like it was also timely for when you recommended it. So I was into that. Cool. Well, Chayce, so finally, before we head out, for those that want to reach out, maybe there are people that are at the point where they go, yeah, this actually makes sense. I just want somebody I can trust to take care of this. Or maybe there's just people that want to connect with you, get to know you more, and kind of be able to walk the path and the journey with you and get to know you more before they start working with you. How can people reach out? How should they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me at chayce@growthfinancial.co, so .co, not .com. And Chayce is spelled Chayce.
Okay. We will put that in the description. Is there any social profiles that you like to use for business or anything like that?
LinkedIn, Facebook. Feel free to add me on both of those guys. We can drop you a link to both of those as well.
Awesome, cool. Well, there you have it, guys. Hopefully, this episode of the Lendsetter Show helps you make more sense of your finances. Obviously, it's a tough market out there, and even if it's not, my philosophy is the best time to prepare for a recession is before you're in one. And if you always act as if you're in a recession, the good times are great and the bad times are okay. And that's a very different story than those that act like they're in a boom at all times and then get their teeth kicked in when they are in a recession, which I think we've seen, right? A lot of people have come from 2020, 2021 when money was free, rates were the 2s and the 3s, life was good. If you had a pulse and you could fog a mirror, you could write a loan because everybody was refinancing and buying, and it was a crazy market. And that creates obviously a vacuum in a market like this, which, obviously perpetuated by the recession and rising interest rates and low inventories and all that. And so it's like people took their foot off the gas during those years. And now there's a lot of hard lessons being learned, right? And so the best time for you to prepare for that is before it ever happens, right? So there's no better time than now at this point. And so seize this opportunity to make sense of your finances. And get people with you that you trust that can help you watch your back and help you hold on to the money that you make, because a lot of people can make money, and that's great, but it's a hell of a lot harder to make it and hold it and continue to make more. And so that's what having somebody like a CFO on your team does for you. So with that said, guys, thanks for checking out this episode of the Lendsetter Show. Chayce, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you as always. I always look forward to every call I get to have with you.
Sir.
Awesome, man. Take care, guys.